Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Dog Book Club, where we read a dog-related book every month. This month's book was Travels with Casey by Benoit Denizet-Lewis. As much as I would love to go on a mini road trip with my dogs for the intro of this video, we're all stuck at home. So instead, I'll show you some clips of a road trip that I did in the past from Toronto to Montreal with my old rescue dog Django and my foster dog Jazz. As always, we are going to be reviewing the cover art, the voice that the author uses, and the content itself. There are timestamps in the description if you'd like to skip ahead. I don't think my dog likes me very much. New York Times Magazine writer Benoit Denizet-Lewis confesses at the beginning of his cross-country journey in a rented RV with his 9-year-old Labrador mix Casey. Over 4 months, 32 states, 13,000 miles, and countless encounters with a colorful parade of dogs and dog-obsessed humans, Denizet-Lewis and Casey explore, with humorous and sometimes heartbreaking results, the myriad ways that dogs and humans rely on each other and what our relationship with man's best friend says about our own needs and desires. Sounds good, right? First off, I want to ask you guys if this is something that you would ever do. Let me know in the comment section. If you had the opportunity, both the time and the financial means to be able to do it, would you get in an RV and travel around the country for 4 months? I can tell you right now, I would do it in a second. This is something that I have always wanted to do, to be able to explore and be with my best friends and then have protection all wrapped into one. I just feel like it would be a dream and it would be so much fun. Anytime I read a book, whether it's this one or another one where somebody's traveling around the United States, it just puts me in awe of this country that we live in. It is so diverse and so vast. Like, we have beaches, we have deserts, we have mountains, we have so many different things, and I think we often think we need to go somewhere far away in order to experience different sights and cultures, but we often forget how much we have here. The entire time I was making notes on all these really cool places that are not even that far from me that I want to go and travel and see certain things. Like a celebrity animal communicator that's in Houston? I had no idea. Would you guys think I was crazy if I went and did like a course on that? Because I've always been so interested in it. I don't know if I believe in it 100%, but I find it really fascinating, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've always been so curious about what my dog's life was like before they came to us, before they were rescued, and whether it's true or not. Do you guys think it's crazy or do you guys think it's cool? Overall, I liked this book a lot more than what I thought I would. I thought it was gonna be pretty fluffy and all about him as he was driving across the country, but it was filled with so many interesting facts and tidbits that were actually backed up by studies and factual information, which he listed in the back, and I learned so much from it, and I was very pleasantly surprised. For example, nearly 70% of 4-year-olds interpret an aggressive dog as happy or smiling. 93% of missing dogs are eventually found. Kids who grow up with dogs are healthier and have higher degrees of empathy and self-esteem. George Washington had a dog and was credited for the creation of the American Foxhound. In fact, most US presidents have had a dog. More than half of all American dogs are considered overweight or obese. The more overweight you are, the more likely that your dog will be overweight too. So I learned a lot, to say the least. I thought that this book was light and fun, which is exactly what I need with all of this turmoil going on in the world right now, but it also dipped into some more serious issues, so it was really kind of a roller coaster ride of a book. So I liked the second half of the book a lot more than the first half, and I don't know if that's just because I've been to the East Coast and seen a lot of those things, whereas I have not experienced a lot of the West Coast, and so I found that to be a lot more interesting, or if it was just that the things that he was going to were more interesting to me. I also felt like the first half was very much about his thoughts, his feelings, him getting used to things, that kind of stuff, whereas the second half was more about the things that he was seeing and what he was encountering. He himself said, "Somewhere around Texas, I stopped worrying about whether Casey was the right dog for me and started appreciating him for the dog he is." And I really wonder if that kind of is what made the first half of the book seem like a completely different book from the second half. All of the side stories too. So he didn't just talk about the big major events, but he gave us little details about the tiny little unexpected stops, which I liked. It just made the story really well-rounded. It wasn't just all these big major events. It was like his day-to-day, and we got to be a part of that. Honestly, I couldn't help but being a little bit envious by how easygoing Casey was. Like, any situation he was thrown into and any place he went, he was just so cool and so calm. Anyone who's ever had a rescue dog will know the stress that comes along with that, where you're constantly worried that something's gonna happen. So I was envious that he could do that with his dog and that his dog was so easygoing. Obviously, apart from the fact that he hated the RV the entire time. I thought that the Cesar Millan section was really interesting. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Cesar Millan. I know that he's super famous, but there's a lot of people in the positive reinforcement dog training world that don't agree with his methods, and that's the kind of training that I practice as well. So I've just kind of always brushed him off and not really actually looked into any of his methods. And through reading this, it just made me think maybe I haven't given him a fair shot. Like, what do you guys think of Cesar Millan? Do you agree with the way that he does things, or do you not? I'm really curious to know. Maybe I'll throw one of his books into this book club at some point, just so we can analyze it and see what we think. What do you guys think of that? I loved the ranch section. Honestly, I wish that this part was longer because I find working dogs to be so interesting. And I'm pretty sure that the ranch that he went to was in Colorado, but I know that there are so many ranches in Texas. So it almost made me think maybe there's a ranch that I could find and go to that's here in Texas, and I can learn more about that, because I thought it was so fascinating, especially the part when they were saying that working dogs do better when they're not coddled like the normal dog and when they have their own places to sleep. I thought that was so fascinating. There were so many parts of this book though that really got to me and made me really sad. So when he went to go visit the kill shelter, when he saw all the dogs on the reservation, and then also when he was in East St. Louis and he was helping to rescue dogs there. Animal rescue has always been something that's been really close to my heart. It's a cause that really speaks to me and makes me upset, but also gets me really motivated. And reading this kind of stuff, it made me just so fired up. Like, I felt like I wanted to go and do that. It seems like it was the best job in the world, but I know, me being a sensitive person like I am, that it would also absolutely break me. The guilt of all of the dogs that you can't help. Like, yes, there's all the dogs that you can help, but then there's all the ones that you need to leave behind or that you can't help. And that's what would really get to me. And I know, I mean, you guys know that I want to start a dog rescue at some point, and that's the thing that I'm trying to find within myself right now. Is I obviously want to help, but I need to find ways in order to keep myself safe emotionally, so that I'm able to keep doing that work. Right now I'm working at a no-kill shelter, so they do not kill any, they do not euthanize any animals there, but even that oftentimes is heartbreaking for me. So I'm really, that's kind of this phase of my life, what I'm trying to work on is finding ways that I can not take that work home with me, because we can do the best that we can and save as many animals as we can, but there are so many, guys. So I can't let that get to me. He met so many dog people when he was on his trip, and it just made me realize that this isn't a competition. It's not a competition of whose dog is more well-behaved or whose is more well-trained. We're all dog people. We're all on the same team, and we should stop trying to beat each other up. I think we should support each other in trying to be the best that we can be with our dogs. Nobody's perfect, myself included, and I just really, it just made me have a lot of love for all dog people. Okay, so now his voice. I thought he was really funny. I loved the way that he wrote. So a funny example that I literally laughed out loud as I was reading it because I thought it was so clever. I spent the night at the Shoreline RV Park in Eureka, a coastal town favored by dog lovers, hippies, and dog-loving hippies. This guy sounds so much like me in male form. Like, even his way of planning his trips, where he kind of makes plans but then is open to changing them, and inevitably they always change. He's just a lot like me in that way. I also liked that he told us everything. Like, I feel like he didn't leave anything out. He did mention when he had some romance time with his, I guess it wasn't his boyfriend, but the guy that he was seeing at the time, and I feel like most people would try to leave that out of a book, but I do really think it was a part of the story. It was funny when the dog tried to jump up on the bed and they were having their time. I laughed at that, but also I just feel like it made it more relatable, and then it made me really feel for the end of the book when he, spoiler alert, breaks up with him or leaves him. It just made me feel for him more because I really got more of a sense of their relationship. So I really appreciate that. I think that he was really interested in bringing us in by the way that he was speaking and the stories that he was telling, and I really liked that about it. So the cover art, honestly, anything that has a dog on the cover of it always draws my attention on the shelf, so I would probably pick it up specifically for the reason that Casey is an adorable dog and he's on the front of it. It was also really colorful with the bright yellow. I like that a lot about it. And then in the middle of the book, there's a bunch bunch of pages where he has inserted photos of his trip along the way, which I really liked, because then when it got to that point in the book, I could go and look at that and kind of feel more like I was there. So I really liked that about it. I don't really know why he called it Travels with Casey, to be honest, because he mentions so many times in the book the correlation between his book and Travels with Charlie. And so I don't really know why he named it pretty much the same thing, knowing that they were so similar, unless that was a choice. Maybe he wanted to show the similarities and the differences between the two different books, in which case that's fine. But I was a little confused by it. I was like, if you already know that they're so similar, then why are you just like upping the fact and making them even more similar? In this book, he mentions his Facebook page quite a bit, and that he was updating people on it. So I went ahead and I found his Facebook page. He is still posting. He posts pictures of the dogs regularly. So I'm gonna link that below for you guys if you wanna check it out and follow it. I definitely do now. One thing that I found out that was really sad was that Casey recently died this past year, I believe that it was, which made me really sad, but I think it's such a nice memento that he has this book that he can go back and look at and really enjoy and kind of spend some time with his dog via the book that he wrote. So those are my thoughts on the book Travels with Casey by Benoit Denizet-Lewis. Let me know what you thought of the book in the comment section. We can get started talking on it. Now we're going to talk about the next book club book, which is going to be our April book club book. We are reading Energy Healing for Animals by Joan Ranquet, a hands-on guide for enhancing the health, longevity, and happiness of your pets. This book is a little bit of a curveball. It's a little hippy-dippy, a little woo-woo, but I did really want to diversify the books that are on this year's book club list because we all have different interests, so this may not be for everybody. Personally, I'm really interested in this subject. I don't know if I believe in it 100%, and that's fine. That's the point of reading it, right? We're figuring out what we think about it, but I am really curious in the topic. I want to see my opinion on it, try out some of the things myself on my dogs, and see kind of if it's something to learn more about or if it's something to put in the trash. I don't know. So I'm really excited for us to read this book and to go through it together and to work with our dogs on energy healing and see how that works for them. So we're going to be talking about this book at the end of April, so make sure that you get your copies and we can start reading this and trying out all the different tips that she suggests.